The lights went out all at once. Not just one hallway. Not just one block. The entire prison. Then the doors slammed shut by themselves, metal crashing on metal, echoing through the night like thunder. In the darkness, a voice came over the loudspeaker. This facility is now under federal control. Remain where you are. That was the night federal agents took control of a US prison. And nothing would ever be the same again. I was standing in the control room when it happened. My name is Daniel Wright. I had worked at the prison for 7 years. I knew every sound it made. Every normal alarm. Every normal problem. This was not normal. Red lights flickered on. Backup power hummed. Screens showed black and white images of cell blocks frozen in place. Inmates were shouting. Guards were shouting back. No one knew what was going on. And that was the scariest part. Outside the walls, engines roared. Not police cars. Not local units. These were armored trucks. Black vans. Helicopters cutting through the sky. Federal agents were arriving. Quietly. Quickly. On purpose. Inside the prison, word spread fast. Feds are here. Something big happened. This isn't a drill. Inmates pressed their faces to cell doors. Guards locked down their posts. Radios buzzed with half-answers and broken orders. We were told to stand down. That never happens. The loudspeaker clicked on again. All staff, follow federal instructions. Do not interfere. That was the moment I knew control was gone. Not lost. Taken. Hours earlier, the prison had felt tense but calm. Too calm. For weeks, we had seen signs. Fights stopped suddenly. Noise dropped. Gangs went quiet. That sounds good on paper. It wasn't. It meant someone else was in charge. The prison held over 1,800 inmates. Maximum security. Gang leaders. Organized crime figures. Men with power even behind bars. They talked through notes. Through looks. Through people on the outside. We tried to stop it. We failed. The first warning came when a guard didn't show up for work. Then another. Then a third. No calls. No excuses. Just gone. That was brushed off. It shouldn't have been. The second warning was money. Large amounts. Moving through inmate accounts. Too organized. Too clean. Someone was running something big. The final warning came from a note. Found during a random search. 3 words written clearly. Tonight. Midnight. Ready. That note never reached the right desk. By the time anyone understood it, the helicopters were already in the air. Back in the control room, the main doors opened. Men in dark uniforms stepped inside. Federal agents. No shouting. No rushing. They moved like they owned the place. Because now, they did. One of them looked at me and said, "You're safe. Step back." I stepped back. My hands were shaking. Cell block by cell block, control changed. Federal teams took over cameras. They replaced guards at doors. They locked down movement completely. Inmates were ordered to sit on their bunks. Some laughed. Some looked scared. Some went silent. They knew what federal control meant. It meant the game was over. I watched on the screens as agents entered the gang units first. They knew exactly where to go. Exactly who to pull out. That told me everything. This wasn't a reaction. This was planned. In one block, an inmate refused orders. He stood up and shouted. An agent stepped forward and spoke calmly. "Sit down." The inmate Saturday. No fight. No drama. Authority had shifted. As the night went on, more truths came out. Phones were found. Lists were found. Names were found. Connections to crimes outside the prison. Orders sent from cells to the streets. The prison wasn't just holding criminals. It was helping run them. By dawn, dozens of inmates were gone. Taken out quietly. No announcements. No explanations. Just empty cells. Guards gathered in small groups, whispering. "Did you know? How long was this going on? Are we in trouble?" No one answered. Before sunrise, the warden was escorted out. No speech. No goodbye. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about one fight. Or one riot. This was about control. And the federal government had decided the prison had lost it completely. As the sun came up, the loudspeaker spoke one last time. Remain calm. This operation is ongoing. Ongoing. That word stayed with me. Because whatever had started that night, it wasn't finished. And whatever the federal agents were really there to stop, had already gone further than anyone wanted to admit. The prison did not sleep that night. Neither did I. Federal agents moved through the blocks slowly, one by one, like they were turning pages in a book they already knew by heart. They didn't ask questions out loud. They already had answers. Inmates were pulled from cells quietly. No shouting. No struggle. Just names called, cuffs placed, and footsteps fading down the hall. That scared everyone more than force ever could. By early morning, the prison felt empty. Not because inmates were gone, but because control was gone. Guards stood where we were told to stand. We watched what we were told to watch. But decisions were no longer ours. Every camera, every door, every movement. Federal hands. Around 6 a.m., we were gathered in the gym. Not inmates. Staff. That never happens. A federal supervisor stood at the front. Calm voice. No emotion. This facility has been compromised, he said. You are not under arrest. But this building is now a crime scene. A crime scene. Those words hit hard. They explained just enough to scare us. A large criminal network had been operating inside the prison. Orders were being sent out. Money was moving. Violence outside the prison was being directed from inside. Phones had been hidden in walls. Messages passed through corrupt staff. Schedules leaked. This wasn't one bad guard. It was a system failure. Interviews started. One by one. Guards were taken into rooms and asked simple questions. Who do you talk to? Who do you trust? What did you see? Some answered fast. Some shook. Some stayed silent. I told them everything I knew. About the missing guards. About the money. About the strange calm before the night. The agent nodded. You're not the first to say that, he told me. That made it worse. Inside the blocks, inmates sensed change. Gangs stopped moving freely. Signals stopped. Looks stopped. Men who once walked with confidence now stared at the floor. Training had ended. Accountability had arrived. By afternoon, the news broke outside. Headlines spread fast. Federal agents take over prison. Major criminal network exposed. Families called non-stop. Guards' phones buzzed with messages. No one knew what to say. More inmates were removed. High-ranking ones. Leaders. Men who had power for years. They were flown out. Not transferred. Disappeared into the system. That was a high moment. Not loud. But final. Then came the searches. Deep searches. Walls were opened. Floors were cut. Ceilings were checked. They found more phones. More lists. More evidence. Every find proved the same thing. This prison had been running on a second set of rules. That evening, a guard next to me whispered, "How did we miss this?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was simple. We didn't miss it. We ignored it. As night fell again, the prison was quieter than I had ever heard it. No codes. No signals. No hidden power. Just locked doors and waiting. But federal agents were still working. Still pulling threads. And every thread led somewhere darker. Because this wasn't just about one prison. The network stretched far beyond these walls. And tomorrow, we would find out just how far. By the third morning, the truth could no longer hide. Federal agents filled the command center with maps, charts, and photos. Lines connected names inside the prison to faces outside it. Cities. Streets. Bank accounts. What had started in one prison reached across the country. That was the moment everyone understood. This was never just about a prison. The network was explained to us in pieces. Gang leaders inside the prison had used phones to give orders. Those orders went to people on the outside. Drugs were moved. Money was collected. Violence was planned. The prison was the headquarters. Safe. Quiet. Protected by walls. That's why it worked. More arrests happened that week. Not inside the prison. Outside. Homes were searched. Cars were seized. Businesses were shut down. People who thought they were untouchable were taken away in handcuffs. The prison takeover had opened a door that could not be closed again. That was the highest peak. The moment the full scale was revealed. Inside the prison, things changed fast. Gangs lost power. Group movement was ended. Communication was cut down to the basics. New rules were enforced. Hard rules. Not just for inmates. For staff too. Every action was watched. Every report mattered. Some guards were arrested. That was the hardest part. Men I had worked with. Men I trusted. They had helped pass information. They had ignored signs. They had taken money. Seeing them led away in cuffs hurt more than I expected. But it answered questions we had been asking for years. The warden was officially removed. A federal administrator took over. Policies were rewritten. Training was changed. Outside oversight became permanent. The prison would never return to how it was before. Weeks later, federal control slowly stepped back. Not all the way. They left systems behind. Checks. Audits. Eyes that never left. The message was clear. This could not happen again. I stayed at the prison for another year. It felt different. Quieter, but real this time. Not controlled by fear. Not controlled by gangs. Controlled by rules that were finally enforced. When people ask me now about that night, I tell them this. The scariest part wasn't the helicopters. It wasn't the agents. It wasn't the lockdown. It was realizing how long the prison had not been ours. That night, federal agents took control of a US prison. But what they really took back was authority. They reminded everyone that walls alone don't stop crime. Attention does. Accountability does. Action does. And if those fail, someone else will take control. That is the true story. And that is why that night will never be forgotten.